again this morning. I saw this and I just wanted to have it up for you guys to look at. Yeah, it takes someone that wants to change. You just can't make them change. And that touches a lot in me being in law enforcement. You tell these people the way that would help their situation, and I'd even tell them the scenarios of what could occur in their life, but we're back out there again with the same situation. It just does take people themselves to change, to want to change. Anyway. Okay. We are, anything right quick? Anything before I move forward? I'll try not to get behind. Olivia's not feeling so well. She's going through something. We're not sure yet. She gets a headache and then it turns into letting go of some of her food. So anyway. All right, we're in Genesis 8. This is, anybody know what mountain that is? They look all the same. This is a current view of last year, the current view of Mount Ararat. Why Mount Ararat? Anybody know that answer? Yeah. That's where, in Scripture, we'll read here in just a minute, where it landed. But did it look like that back then? I have no idea. Once again, we're going through Genesis, and there's a lot of questions that we'll never know. Maybe when we get to heaven, if we care to ask. But even in our teachers' meeting Wednesday, they were asking questions to Creighton, and Creighton was like, look, guys, there's only so much I know based off what's here. So to know where this is at, let's see if this is going to work. Okay, so we're in Fort Worth here. Thanks for the sound effects. It really works out really well. Okay. Mount Ararat. I'm going to zoom out here so you can kind of tell where it's at based on where Jerusalem is and all that. It's like northeast of, you'll see here in a minute. I just tried to zoom out slowly so you can kind of get a grasp of what's around. And this is where the big picture is. Boom. So here's Jerusalem, Israel, Syria, and all that. So now you know some information that you may or may not need the rest of your life. But it helped me to understand where we're at, Mount Ararat. And I was going to look up the elevation of it, but I don't think it matters because things are different from today as it was back then. How different, I have no idea at all. So, but let me read this, chapter 8, verse 1 through 4 right quick. And I'll chop this down and break it down. I know we all know the story of the flood, but there's some details that are interesting to this. So God remembered Noah as well as all the wildlife and all the livestock that were with him in the ark. God caused a wind to pass over the earth, and the water began to subside. The sources of the watery depths and the floodgates of the sky were closed, and the rain from the sky stopped. The water steadily receded from the earth, and by the end of 150 days, the water had decreased significantly. The ark came to rest in the 7th month on the 7th day of the month in the mountains on the mountains of Ararat. Okay. I'm not going to talk about days. 150 days, the 7th month, or the 17th of the day, and I have a hard time with birthdays in my family. I'm not even going to try that math. Just not going to do it. Y'all are welcome to, but we're just not going to do that. So here's a question for you guys. If y'all have grown up knowing this story, so what was the first bird that Noah sent out? What? A dove?
I'm married to him.
That's correct. A raven was sent out first, not a dove. It's just what it says here. I'm not trying to be right. Because I would have said the dove myself. Because it's always been taught to me that Noah sent a dove. It was glorious. But rereading this several times, it was so. Let me read it. Verse 5 through 9. A dove like that? Now it could be. I don't think the background is correct. I mean, I don't know if that's a real dove. Anyway, okay. The water continued to recede until the 10th month. In the 10th month, on the first day of the month, the tops of the mountains were visible. After 40 days, Noah opened the window of the ark that he had made, and he sent out a raven. It went back and forth until the water had dried up from the earth. Then he sent out a dove to see whether the water on the earth's surface had gone down. But the dove found no resting place for its foot. It returned to him in the ark because water covered the surface of the whole earth. He reached out and brought it into the ark to himself. So after 40 days, Noah sent out a raven, continued doing this until the water had dried up from the earth. So, anyone know why a raven? I don't have a good answer for this, so don't think I'm going to go back to me being right. Any thoughts on why it could have been a raven first? What? They don't forget.
No, I've heard that.
They don't forget what? I don't have an idea or a clue, but I have a thought behind that. And it might be gross to think about it. Uh, Possibly because ravens are predatory. They're looking for something to eat off of. Carcasses. Why does that matter? I have no idea. Maybe just to make sure that there's no bodies laying around whenever they. Yeah. But it kept returning back to Noah. There was no other food because Noah's probably the only one that had the food for him. So apparently there wasn't anything out there for it to eat. I don't know. They are intelligent, but uh, if they are intelligent, what was his purpose of still sending them out, right? Um, so a few questions I have is: Are hope and faith the same thing? So like When it what?
Google's answer. Raven at seeking its food sells upon every carcass that it sees. Whereas the dove will always settle on what's dry and clean.
Are you reading my notes right now? Are you like patching into my notes? Yes, and we'll get to that. As far as the dove part, well, then he did send a dove, and it just didn't return back to anything. So hope is a feeling of expectation and desire for a certain thing to happen. Here, worldly is hope and faith. Do they see it separately or the same thing here on earth? What do y'all think? Still not looking.
Did you watch her?
Well, our daughter's not feeling well, but it may not be for. I don't either. Lance wouldn't have come to do that. Well, I think she does. If she knew it was about someone else, she wouldn't act like that. Hopefully.
We'll go with it.
We'll go with it. Yeah, I'm trying to take up 4. Okay, y'all remember that? I got to record. So anyway, here on Earth, when I hear someone say, "Man, I hope that happens," or "I have faith that it's going to happen," they consider it differently or the same. That's in my experience. I've heard people say the same, expressed the same way, as opposed to biblically, it's considered differently. What do you hope in outside of Jesus? Even small things. What do you hope for? Like, I hope the Dallas Cowboys win. I hope. Do I have faith that they're going to win? Moving on. Like I hoped that Miami was going to win yesterday. Only because they weren't in their element. I wanted to see them conquer a team that has been practicing in that type of atmosphere for years. But I didn't have faith it was going to happen. So anyone else? Anything that you had in your life that you hoped was going to happen? We hope to be a millionaire. We hope to win that lottery ticket that we just purchased. You hoped to get married. That's right. That's right.
I think for me, faith would work out. It's where it moving forward when I don't know what I
And it's definitely certainly a maturity in your walk. Like, I hope it does happen this way, but more than likely it's not. But you know by faith that the way it works out is the way it's supposed to. It's like God just gives us a little bit of droplets as we go to keep us on the edge. Appreciate that, you know. So what happens to us if we have nothing to place our hope in? And I don't mean faith, I mean actually hope. If you don't hope in something, what happens to us? I would say that if it wasn't for us hoping into something, we wouldn't be alive. And I say that with dealing with suicidal people. They lose all hope. They have nothing to hope for. Then they take their own life or something of that nature. Does that make sense? And I hate to say it that far, but without hope, we can't move forward. So we always got to have something to hope in. Anything on that? Now this I just picked this picture out so just to know, just to look at that and just go. I mean, I don't know. I doubt that's even close to the design, but just the gravity of the situation, of how many possible situations on animals. So think about that in your thought. So I'm going to move on to 10, verse 10, chapter 8, verse 10. So Noah waited 7 more days and sent out to the dove from the ark again. When the dove came to him at evening, there was plucked olive leaf in its beak. So Noah knew that the water on the earth's surface had gone down. After he had waited another 7 days, he sent out the dove, but it did not return to him again. In the 601st year, in the first month on the first day of the month, the water that had covered the earth was dried up. Then Noah removed the ark's cover and saw that the surface of the ground was drying. By the 27th day of the second month, the earth was dry. Once again, I'm not going to get into all the dates, except what's important there is what's the significance of 600 days? So we believe that the ark was amongst the water for about a year and a half. Don't hold any water to that, But that's how old Noah was believed to be, 600 years old. And I can't imagine being that old. But once again, I don't know if the ages are the same that we do ages today. But if it is 600 years old, we just went to a funeral here for Natalie's grandma. She was, I think, 81. And I remember talking to her this summer. She just sat down and talked to me, and she had no issues getting up and helping people and this and that. She was a pretty strong woman at 81. But then you talk about a man that was 600 years old. He started building the ark when he was 500 years old. It took him 100 years. So Noah sent out the dove again after 7 days, but why a dove this time? And Miss Coffee over there pretty much said it. It's because they look for dry land that's inhabitable. Sorry. Doves only like clean, dry land. The dove came back from finding an olive, but I guess it wasn't enough to settle making a home. It just was able to pluck whatever it was and came back. There's a lot of questions there that I don't have answers for, so we're going to move on. So he sent it out 7 days, didn't return. If you were Noah here and the dove returned back with food, what's keeping you on the boat? Like, okay, this bird returned for food, the water's going down. Why is Noah still on the boat? Any thoughts behind that? Once again, I don't have a right answer. I just want to hear y'all's thoughts. Why wouldn't you get off the boat after you realize that there's food on land? Or would y'all get off the boat?
I'd shut the door. Noah ate me.
That's a good question. there's nothing in Scripture that says how the door was opened. But I wonder if I just went through these emotions with being on the boat for so long, I just might be anxious to get off. But on the other hand, God just sent all these animals to this boat, shut the door, and He told us it was coming. So I'm curious. For me, would that be enough for me to get off the boat, or would I have waited for His answer to get off? Ugh, I just can't imagine. We got 2 dogs. Man, they're driving us crazy right now, just being inside. So just having all that many animals and seeing that. So, but the fact that the dove came back with something, does that give us hope? And would that make us anxious to want to get off the boat? I know it would me, I think. Surely. I mean, that's a lot of time with your family. I don't know how you guys live with such big families in y'all's house. I guess you do what you got to do. Sure. But yeah. Maybe waiting for a direction from God, or because they just saw something miraculous and I'm scared to get off the boat. What if another flood comes or all the animals leave and now we don't have anything to eat? And we're about to come up with some more questions on that. So here's a personal question for y'all. Have you ever had to wait on God? Anything that comes to mind when I ask that question with you guys personally? Have you ever had to wait for God? Like for me, the longest period of my life was waiting on the job that I have now. Become a police officer. At the time, I was an aircraft mechanic building military aircraft, which I love doing, but it's not everything I wanted to do. And so I put in my application with the Fort Worth Police Department, and even there's a note that even says, "Do not contact our police department. We'll call you when we think you're a good candidate." And I met all the criterias that they had, and then I think 6 months later, I received a phone call, said, "Hey, this is Detective so and so. We want you to come in to actually take a test now. It's a physical test and a written test." Like, all right. I didn't think they were ever going to call. I thought they would just scratch it off because I didn't hear nothing. There was no one I could call either to ask. And you're not even allowed to ask the officers that are in the department because they're not allowed to call them to get insight. So I was waiting on God to hear an answer whether or not this is the answer. And I figured after 6 months that was the answer. Apparently it wasn't when I got a call. Well, I go to this I passed the test, obviously, the physical test and the written test. Well, a year later, after that, they finally called. They said, "Hey, you did a good job. We have a class coming up. We need you to come in for all this stuff." And I had to go, and that's a long story in itself. But I had to wait a year and a half to get an answer from God whether I'm supposed to do this job or not. And that's probably the longest. And so that's the example that I have as far as having to wait on God for an answer. Y'all have anything similar to that? Maybe not that extreme, or maybe more extreme. Let's think about it because I'm going to ask a lot of questions. Who in here has patience or doesn't have patience to wait? Who most of y'all have patience? Patience? No. You look like a patient person, but no. Certain things. I guess the real test of patience is, what is it? Go on the fast lane and drive the speed limit? Well, check riders. Yeah, I'd be patient with that. Well, it depends how long it takes for them to write the check. So most of us are impatient on certain things. I may be too patient for stuff. No, I'm not even going to say that because my wife's in here. She would probably say something different. I'm a go-getter. If you tell me you need something done, I'm going to do it. And I'm going to figure out a way to do it. But one thing, yeah, I'm going to get ahead of myself. Oh, but is waiting a vital part of our walk with Jesus? Yeah, right? Learning to wait on Him is crucial in our walk with Jesus. Do we learn either way for not waiting or waiting? So if you're waiting on God or Jesus, if you're waiting, you do learn something from that, right? But what if you don't wait and do it? You still learn from it, right? It's just not how you want to. The end result's not how you want to learn. I guess. Anybody on that? So here's even a bigger question. Now I wish my wife was in here. How do you feel when it interests you? We're talking about patience and asking for something from someone else. For instance, when you ask something from someone and that person says, let me pray about it. Or when you get an answer from God, or when I get an answer from God, I'll let you know. When you know someone that's spiritual, but you need something from them that you think is a simple answer, and they respond, well, let me pray about it. My wife hates that, especially from certain individuals. And I won't bring that up, probably because I'm recording. I'm just going to bring it up, but I'm not going to bring it up. It's certain people she can't stand to hear that from, but she gets it. And that you have to have a lot of patience with that. Like, it's a simple question. Why can't you answer it? It may not be simple to them. Anything else on that? All right, 15:19. That's right, 15:19. Then God spoke to Noah, come out of the ark, you. Okay, this is going to get a lot of. This is the worst part of the verses. Just a lot of you and yours and this. Then God spoke to Noah, come out of the ark, you, your wife, your sons, and your sons' wives with you. It didn't say how. Talking about the door that was closed by God. How did it get open? That's an answer we don't have. Verse 17, bring out all the living creatures that are with you, birds, livestock, those that crawl on the earth, and they will spread over the earth and be fruitful and multiply on the earth. So Noah, along with his sons, his wife, and his sons' wives, came out. All the animals, all the creatures that crawl, and all the flying creatures, everything that moves on the earth came out of the ark by their families. Okay, so then God spoke. How long has it been since God has spoken to Noah that we know of? So we know that God told Noah to build the ark, first of all, when he was 500 years old. And then quite possibly he spoke to him again, saying pretty much get on the boat and I'm closing the door. But nearly a year and a half later, God finally speaks to him. As far as we know, that's written here. He might have spoken to him a little bit more, I don't know. It's been a while, probably. Or at least that's documented. So now a fresh start. I didn't realize when I grabbed this picture that there was other people on this. I thought it was just those two people. Then I realized there's a lot more on the beach here. Now a fresh start, a new beginning. How many times have we just wanted a fresh start? But the biggest question is not only a fresh start, but how many of us actually got it? Any of us get a fresh start that you were hoping to get? Ours is like the house. Fresh start, a new area. Not that we were upset about where we were living or anything. We had a great place. But we have a fresh start, a new beginning. The kids even have a fresh start. Even I had a fresh start with the new school, which I was very thankful of, because I've yet to had to discipline any kids. Unfortunately, I've had to discipline some adults, which is really weird. That's another story I'm not going to tell. You're welcome. But a fresh start. Has anyone here had a fresh start that they hoped for? Anyone have that yet? It's a good feeling. A new car. A new marriage. Yeah. You just learn from those from the past to help you with that fresh start. You know what to change or what to look for, right? Yeah, friendships, new friendships. When my wife and I started dating, she had some friends that I didn't like. I wouldn't hang out with them. And she couldn't handle why. She didn't understand why. And I said, if I tell you, you just won't like me anymore, then you'll think I'm just this almighty person. So I'm just going to let it go. And I'm not going to tell you to change. If you want to hang out with them, you hang out with them. That's something I'll have to deal with. I'm just glad she doesn't hang out with them anymore. Now she understands. Now y'all are her friends. It worked. It worked. She still stays in contact with those people because she's now their boss. And I've had to explain to her, once you become the boss of your friends, it doesn't become friends anymore. And she had to learn that a few times. But she didn't want to give up her salary for her friends. Anyway, moving on.
Oh, I'm sure you have. It's all lies. Don't believe anything.
So, getting off the boat. Be fruitful and multiply. Don't worry about the animals. They have their place that I've demanded them to go. Can you imagine just... I think about my dogs that have been cooped up in the house and they just want to get out. They stand by the door because they want to get out. They don't realize how cold it was this morning. They just want to get out. So we let them out. And man, they kind of bolted for a minute. And they're like, coming back. But most of the time, they're real good about staying close by because I rattled the cup that holds the food. So they're real good about coming back. But imagine being cooped up in the house for a year and a half, not even being able to wander on land. You're in this boat. But there's just no way. So I'm sure these animals probably trampled each other getting out. But they knew where to go. They had a place to go. God told them, the animals, spoke to the animals. Maybe He just designed them where to go. But they started out but they started out, on a mountain. So they had to figure out where to go. Or maybe God already knew where they were going to go. So, but then again, it's like, well, great, that's where all my food's leaving. There goes all my food. What do? And what's about to happen next? It's like, I'm sure they were running after this. And I'll explain that here in a minute. 2022. Okay. Then chapter 8, verse 20. Then Noah built an altar to the Lord. Remember, he just released the animals. He took some of every kind of clean animal and every kind of clean bird and offered burnt offerings on the altar. So he had a nice little barbecue. When the Lord smelled the pleasing aroma, he said to himself, I will never again curse the ground because of human beings, even though the inclination of the human heart is evil from youth onward. And I will never again strike down every living thing as I have done. Y'all know the promise, the rainbow. As long as the earth endures seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, and day and night will not cease. He calls it a burnt offering. This is the part that I didn't understand. I guess God's nostrils are a lot different from ours. Because if you ever smelt a burnt, like you're cooking food, and you could tell when it starts overcooking, it doesn't smell too good. This guy, Noah, he just put a bunch of food on this altar and offered the burnt offerings. So, what was the purpose of saving these animals if he just offered them as a burnt, or if he just put them on the altar and burnt them, some of the animals? Do we no longer have those animals anymore? What do you think happened on that boat for a year and a half? That's another question we may know when we get to heaven. I don't know. But I would surely would think so, because if you saved, or maybe they were animals that God wanted to save to see if he would offer them up as burnt offerings when they got off the boat. I don't know. But I would think after a year and a half, they would have.
I was saying, imagine how many more animals there were.
And they could have brought more of the animals that they used to eat.
Yeah.
It's a possibility.
Because God did provide, in earlier chapters, he did talk about how he provided all the food, not only for them, but for the animals. Yeah, we talked about that last week. How do you know how much food to bring when God doesn't tell you how long you're going to be on the boat? That's what you call faith, that you brought enough food. Like, do we have enough firewood at our house?
Noah's wife was probably like, "No, you're not eating." Probably the rationer.
Yes. So yeah, did the animals have babies? Is Noah sacrificing animals that he saved from the beginning? What's the first thing you would do when you got off the boat? Would it surely be to build an altar? If you've been on a boat for a year and a half, what's the first thing you're going to want to do? Fresh air? But how eerie would it have been, though, when you stepped off the boat and there was nothing out there, not even animals out there, except the ones you just released. If that's what it was, he was on a mountain. I don't know if that might have been a bad picture. I guess they didn't have artists back then. So, a question that I definitely don't have an answer to, but why didn't God just kill everyone and everything instead of going through the drama of building a boat and flooding the earth? Why not? Done. Let me start over. Why did he make Noah build an ark, put all these animals on it when he could have just controlled everything from the beginning? Yeah, I like that. Anybody on that want to add to that? It's like, how can we learn from something that didn't happen?
We were talking about hope. It's still, the fact that there is always hope. Not bad things.
Well, that's what comes down to the difference. What's the difference between hope and faith? We're hoping good outcome. So the faith would be the good outcome, I guess. Yeah. Just hopefully we don't put a lot of hope, a lot of faith into our hope. That makes sense? Because if we do, we'll get disappointed. But if we have faith, we have hope. Anyway, we just have to be okay with faith that it's going to turn out just fine. I'll move on. So yes, I agree with Des here. You have to learn from your history to know how to change. What are we dealing with almost yearly? We got people taking down statues, taking away stories. Doesn't mean we agree to what happened or why they're even as a statue. It's a moment that we must learn from, whether it was good or bad. I don't think people understand that, or maybe they do. I don't know. There's things in our life that we try to get rid of that we don't want to remember. The hardest thing are those who are in their second marriage or other marriages. You don't want to remember what happened in your first. Some things were good, some things were bad. You don't want to remember some physical ailments that you went through, right? You want that to go away, but it'll always be there. So in closing here, and y'all can answer these if you want, okay, or just to ponder on them. What areas in your life do you find it hard to wait on God? What areas in your life do you find it hard to wait on God? What? Well, that's the Exalt, Equipping, and Engage. It's that AI that I use that transforms, and it gives it a whole different. I was just thinking about the snow because that's what we're not going to get in a couple of days. At least 10% of us are.
Spouts out, and there's frost around the our kids are like, look, Mom, all this snow, and I'm like, oh.
Yeah, let's go play in their septic.
Yeah, let's not. Yeah, let's go play.
Ours just turned off. Okay, how many times have you been sent doves with olive branches, but you are still on the boat? How many opportunities have you been asked to serve but you choose to stay on the boat. The question I have pondered this week on is, what are people scared of? Or is it that they enjoy the comforts of others doing unto them? I do take pride, and I talk about this in our teachers' meeting every Wednesday. I do take pride in us, people in our class, who serve amongst the church. Now, we have Scott and Liz. He just told me last week that they were given the opportunity, they prayed about it, and they went ahead and moved forward to go full time with the youth. Man, great people, great, perfect for them. And that's great. Now, selfishly, I'd like them to be in this class. But I'm not here to keep y'all here. I'm here to try to exalt, equip, and engage you guys to see if there's other places y'all would like to serve. A lot of us already do. That's awesome. But there are people out there that you can look in our church, in our congregation. Now, they could be going through something, and I totally understand because I went through that myself. Had some hardships where I just didn't serve for almost 4 years. But I was afraid to get off the boat because of what happened to me, and I use that as an excuse. But some people just don't want to get off the boat because they like being served. I don't know if that's right or wrong or indifferent, but I think my honest opinion is I think it's a sin that you stay on the boat. For those who stay on the boat, that are doing it because they're comfortable, not because of some things going on in their life. That's all different. Anyway, those are hard questions, but here's the last question for us as parents. I grew up learning Noah's Ark when I was a child. Anyone else grow up learning this as a child? Like, yay, rainbows and sunshine and animals and Noah's Ark. But is this really a children's story? If you really think about it, there's like drowning, people dying, loneliness, patience, death. I was never told that God sent the flood to kill people. I mean, they might have said it, but it was kind of quickly rushed over. God started over. But this is a story that I was just taught as a kid. But now I've done a little deeper study here, realize it's kind of a doom and gloom story. But it does give me hope to know that God will pull me out of whatever situation I'm in. As long as I do what He says, to get on the boat, and then to get off when He tells me to. Any last comments on that?